Hey everybody, it's Pastor Ray. It's day 2 of maybe the most important thing we've ever done at Refuel. We believe it's possible to trigger a miracle in the lives of people you care about if you will take the same 5 steps they took in Mark chapter 2. Step 1, it's the word raise, and step 1 was raise your expectations. Step 2 is this: anticipate obstacles. Why is anticipating obstacles so critical? Because let's admit it, we don't live in a perfect world, and I wish we did. I actually saw a guy one time, he said, in a perfect world, chocolate would have no calories. In a perfect world, procrastination would be honored as a virtue. One woman said this: in a perfect world, men would go through labor. Okay? And in my opinion, living in California, in a perfect world, politicians would pay all of us taxes. That would be awesome. Obviously, we don't live in a perfect world, and the problem is this: a lot of people are doing well in life until something negative hits them and derails them for the rest of their life. I did not want to share this story at the Thrive Conference, and I really don't want to put it out to you, but this is just kind of me being real. This is real life here. I almost got derailed, and here's how it happened. Second one is this: anticipate obstacles. And I know a lot of people that are going, they're dreamers, they just are dreamers and quitters. Because I love this. They go, we're going to get this guy to just amazing God. And the first thing that happened is they fail. Check it out. It says, since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, and there's a key word here. It says, since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they quit. They resigned. They got bitter. They, whatever it is. And no, what did they do? They couldn't get him Jesus because of the crowd. What did they do? They actually just created another way. They did not let first-time failure and disappointment stop them. I had a great time on a plane about 10 years ago. I'm on a plane, I'm just having a quiet time, and I'm reading Nehemiah, Nehemiah starts with a disaster. By the way, every great thing in the Bible that happened started with a disaster. If some of you are going, oh, geez, my kids are a disaster, you might be on page 1 of the greatest thing that ever happened. And I read Nehemiah, and here's what I learned out of Nehemiah, and it changed my life. Nehemiah got bad news, just like you and I will. Nehemiah got bad news. He responded to bad news in great ways, and a whole city changed. I'm actually convinced the key to leadership in the next 10 years is going to be for leaders who respond to bad news in great ways. They will create a much better future. And it was funny, Andrew and Kurt and I talked last night, and they said, you got to tell them some of the stuff that's happened in your life. And I do not want to talk about this. Because you look at myself or these other speakers up here and you go, oh, it must be great to have such a perfect life. I grew up in an executive, jet-set, alcoholic, rageaholic, atheist family. My dad was a big shot, and guys literally wanted to run him for governor. Dave, you knew the guy. And he turned him down. He ran Ronald Reagan instead. So that's kind of my background. And then, but my dad, that alcoholism and all of that rageaholic stuff took over, and his life decelerated, and he literally lost everything. And it was about, 35, 40 years ago. I actually was in Southern California. I'm a seminary student and working at a church, and I thought, I think real estate's going to go up. Okay. And I thought, I'm going to be a pastor my whole life, so it's not like I'm ever going to make a ton of money. So I went, I should probably try to buy a house now because I think it's going to go up and it's smarter now. So I buy a home in Southern California in a great area, in a community. It's a 3-bedroom home with a pool, open space in the backyard, and then I just packed it with guys to make all the payments while I'm in seminary. But I went to my parents, and they were still married at that time. And I went to my parents and I said, hey, here's the deal. I'm buying a house, but I don't need like any tax breaks. Pastors know what I'm talking about. And so I said, if you want to put it in your name, that's fine with me. And I said, later on, if I ever get paid more, you can quick claim deed it over to me. And I said, that'll help your taxes and all this kind of stuff. So I lived there for about 10 years, fixed this place up. And then my mom and dad get divorced. I moved to Marin County. My mom and dad get divorced. My mom takes their house and my dad takes my house. And I go, well, that's okay. God probably used me to get him a place to live for the rest of his life, and I'll get it back sometime. I'm also going, I'm not really having to do a whole lot of anything financially future-wise because I'm going, this thing's going up so much, it'll take care of stuff and pay college and all that kind of stuff. And then that goes on for 10 or 15 years, and then my dad's health goes south, and I fly down, and I am with him in his house the night before, talking with him, reading some stuff to him out of the Bible, and then the next morning he passes away. Okay? He had gotten remarried, but his wife had passed away. But he passes away. 10 minutes later, his stepdaughter arrives, comes in and says, "You'll have to get out of my house." And I said, "What?" And she said, "You'll have to get out of my house." And she was married to a legal guy, and they had gotten everything airtight legal. And I wasn't worried about inheriting anything from my dad. I just didn't want anybody stealing my house. And I literally went, and so I looked at her papers. I actually talked to an attorney, and the attorney said, "This is done." He said, "These people know what they're doing." And I'm going, my dad's been dead an hour. I find this out about my house. And somehow I knew this, I knew this was going to be a make it or break it moment. You know what I mean? I went, I'm going to end up bitter and angry and resentful the rest of my life, or I'm going to do something. And I literally, this respond to bad news in great ways. I sort of, when I recovered from the shock, I went, what's the best thing to do? And good friends of mine live in Newport Beach, which was about an hour away. And so I call Morgan and Sandy, and can I come down and see you guys? And I don't do a thing. I go straight to their house, go into their living room. I just choked up talking about this. And I fall apart. And we talk for hours and hours and hours. And somehow the fog lifted. And I realized what God's calling you to, and me too, with your kids, with your marriage, with your future, is too important to become saturated with bitterness and anger and to let the past rage. Andrew had a great line this morning. He said this, your past misery can lead to a better present ministry. And now, I would also love to tell you a story saying, oh, and the next day, God gave me a beachfront home in Maui, okay? That hasn't happened. And Carol and I will deal with the repercussions of this financially for the rest of our lives. However, okay, I walked out of their house that day and have been much better ever since. Does this make sense? Because fundamentally, it's an old line, but you are going to get bitter or you are going to get better. And let me tell you what, you do not want to cave in and let the disappointments of life shape your heart. That makes sense? I actually wrote a phrase, and I put them off. It's right here. It's let your hopes, not your hurts, shape your future. Let your hopes, not your past hurts, shape your future. That is a huge, huge deal. That makes sense? And one of the keys to life is to respond to bad news in great ways. I do not know what your obstacles are, what your heartaches are, all that kind of stuff. And I want to say this, I'm really, 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 really sorry, but I also want to say this, God is working when it doesn't look like God is working. God is working when it doesn't look like God is working.